actively hiding things, and because the abuse was horrific, and it would have been apparent to anybody that would have seen the kids that something was wrong here.
Is this some of the worst child abuse you've seen in your career?
Yes, and not just in my career, but in our office's career, in our institutional memory, this is one of the worst child abuse cases that we've seen.
You consider this precedent setting?
Can you?
In terms of the actual sentences they end up serving?
No, because I think the board takes everything into account so specifically.
You think Jodi's going to end up serving more?
I hope so. I hope that Jodi does serve more. I think that would only be fair. I think that Ruby should serve. So the sentence that they got is basically 4 to 30 years today, right? The 4 1-year minimum stat, and then in Utah you're capped at 30 years. I think that a 4-year minimum for Ruby's actions are entirely appropriate. I hope that Jodi serves more time than that, and I hope that she isn't out of prison until everybody is completely confident that she's no longer a risk. And to get there, she's going to have to acknowledge that she has done wrong, and that you can't use religion as a means to justify your crazy behavior.
I'm just trying to understand, why would the mother, in your opinion, deserve less time when she's watching?
Both women got consecutive sentences of 1 to 15 years each. So 4 to 60 years, but he said it's capped at 30 years. So I guess like 4 to 30 years.
She's torturing her kids versus a stranger.
The parole board is going to take that, and then they're going to give their actual sentencing, because that's determined by the parole board, not the judge.
Wouldn't you hold the parent more accountable?
I don't know. I don't know about the appeal thing. The judge brought it up. He was like, hey, you have 30 days for an appeal. And I'm like, oh, well, would it look bad if they try to appeal this? Or what would they be appealing?
Again, so they both got the same deal, right? Like we didn't give her a less of a minimum time. Part of the mission of what we do when we incarcerate people, I'll obviously want to see justice done. And a mother abusing her children in this way is awful.
However, in Jodi Hildebrand's scenario, they said they have phone calls after she got arrested where she wasn't taking responsibility. She actually said that she was the victim and she blamed the children. So now that we heard about that, I'm sure some news organization out there is going to try to get a hold of those phone calls, and I cannot wait to listen to it. Oh my God. It's going to be unbelievable.
Awful. And people should go to prison for that. Something that is really important is that people shouldn't be released from prison unless they've hit the maximum amount of time they should be in, or they've done enough that justice is served, and it's clear that they're no longer a risk to the community. And I'm super concerned that Jodi, if she were released today, is a significant risk to gather followers. Ruby was essentially a follower of Jodi. And if she's gathering people and then convincing them to do this kind of thing, that's a huge risk. And those type of people shouldn't be walking the streets when they've committed these kind of crimes.
There was some back and forth with the restitution piece of this. Can you explain where you are with that?
So there were a couple of motions filed over the course of the last month about that. And we anticipate a restitution claim coming in that will cover ongoing therapy and physical care, physical recovery if needed.
I hope they're able to manage those finances correctly. Like, let's say they get like a shit ton of money from Jodi Hildebrand. I hope whoever has custody of those children, or I don't know, maybe they'll have like some sort of like financial institute that will handle the money for them. I hope whoever does that, I hope they do a good job. I don't know. Because like sometimes you hear cases where it's like the money's given to the parents and the parents doesn't actually use it for what it's for. And they end up spending it on themselves.
Of the victims of these crimes.
So I'm not quite sure how that's
the state hasn't submitted a claim for restitution yet, and we want to make sure that there's plenty of time for all of that to be kind of analyzed and brought in before we close out restitution. And that should be the same for both defendants, right? Like both of them will end up with restitution orders against them, I assume.
Thank you.
Yep, I have a written statement that kind of recapitulates some of what I said in there, and thank you.
Yeah.
This is what we were talking about. But if you will, there's
another person.
acceptance of
times, and she's always like, he'll hope that Jodi gets.
Who's this guy?
With many layers that happened over many years.
Is this Ruby's lawyer?
It is not one that can be adequately told in one setting, let alone at a press conference. At Windward Law, we know the sorrow our client feels and the remorse she carries. We know of her commitment to heal and provide healing for her family. We give thanks to all who have provided support during this very difficult process. Thank you.
Ruby had her YouTube apology video ready, loaded up with all the ads.
That's her. So the
Queen.
judge talked very differently to defendant Hildebrand versus your client. Do you have any comment on that?
I'll just leave it at what Judge Walton said. I think he was very accurate.
She addressed her husband and children in her statement, yet
Hi, Becky. She didn't address that.
she never turned around to look at him, not even when she left. What do you know about their communication levels?
Wait. Oh, when Ruby was addressing Kevin, that's true. She didn't turn around to address him, did she? She was just like talking to the judge. Interesting.
She addressed her husband and children in her statement, yet she never turned around to look at him, not even when she left. What do you know about their communication levels at this point?
It's like, fuck, how do I answer that? Well, you see, my client, shit, what should I say? What is he gonna say?
I don't, because her husband and family have attorneys, it's difficult for communication to happen except through attorneys. That's an unfortunate consequence sometimes of our legal system in domestic cases.
But she didn't even turn around, didn't look at him.
That's probably by design. We're addressing the court in that proceeding, even though we address family.
What do you expect for the future of her relationship with her children?
I'm hoping that that healing will happen, and that not just physically but emotionally and family-wise,
Hi,
that
Jay,
will
no,
be
you.
a source of positive in the future.
Has she had any family visitors in her time while she's been incarcerated?
Oh yeah. Okay, so apparently, who were the children that showed up? I think she tweeted about that. Kevin, Frankie's glaring at Jodi Hildebrand. Oh wait, hold on. I want to catch up with these tweets. I think she mentioned, okay, so Sherry is there, the oldest daughter. And I think the son is there as well. Chad is there. Okay, so Chad came in with Kevin.
Different family members have reached out through the local jail and have communicated with her, yes.
But not Kevin?
Yeah, because I was thinking, are the family members going to show up?
Not to my knowledge.
Are her children that are older and above 18?
Not to my knowledge. Thank you all.
What do you think a fair sentence for her is, ultimately, the time served?
I have to leave that to the Board of Pardons because that is their entire province, and mine would be a pure guess.
How does that complicate things based on today?
Pardon?
How does that complicate things based on today? I mean, you hear a sentencing, it's very similar to what was already described in court. How does the Board of Pardons and parole fit into this entire nuance here and kind of drag out a process a little bit?
They ultimately have the ultimate decision-making to determine what is the adequate sentence after periods of time have elapsed.
The prosecution said this is the worst child abuse case their office has ever seen. What's it like on the other side of that?
I don't think it's the worst. It's bad, but it's not the worst. Thank you all.
We'll have another statement from Jodi's attorney.
Do you want to just, maybe go right here.
Oh, this is Jodi's attorney. Prosecutor has said that Ruby Frankie admitted almost immediately. Jodi Hildebrand has not. Shit, where did I see that? Yeah. Prosecutor said Ruby Frankie had almost immediately shown remorse. He said Jodi Hildebrandt has not. Okay. Jodi Hildebrandt's lawyer. Oh boy, what's he going to say?
Say your first name.
Douglas Terry, I represent Jodi Hildebrandt.
Doug, you said two sides to every story. It didn't seem like the judge agreed. What do you make of that back and forth in dialogue?
The seriousness of the case, the seriousness of the allegations, the seriousness of the facts that both Ms. Franke and Ms. Hildebrandt pled guilty to. I was not surprised at all by the judge's comments and questions of my client. I'm not prepared to go into specifics with respect to facts that are disputed in this case. I will stand by what I said on her behalf in the sentencing hearing, and that is that she entered into this plea agreement to take responsibility for her conduct in this case. Her statement that she hopes for both the physical and emotional healing of these children is absolutely sincere. How much time she serves will ultimately be up to the Board of Pardons, as with Miss Franke.
When she said that she left the children, Chad
Oh, I thought it was called Board of Parole.
and Sherry had smirks and were looked shocked on their faces. Do you have a comment about that?
That doesn't surprise me, but again, she was sincere in that statement.
Do you think she should have had more to say? Ruby spoke for a very detailed length of time, and Jodi had a few sentences. Did you go over that with her? Was there an opportunity for her to say more?
She had the opportunity to say whatever she wanted to say. I did not put words in her mouth. I wanted her to make a statement from the heart. That's what she felt like she needed to convey today.
What a politician answer.
That it's about the children, not about her, and that's what she did.
The prosecution said there's phone calls that are recorded in which Hildebrandt lacks remorse. What do you know about those phone calls, and is she?
I know that early on in the case, she had phone calls with individuals that were in support of her, did not believe that she did the things that she was accused of doing. I have not listened.
Who are these individuals that called her in support of her? We need to know. Did they not believe the 911 caller? Did they not believe the injuries about the children, about the duct tape? Or were they like, hey, I know you do this kind of shit and we don't care. What you're doing is right.
To those phone calls, as the county attorney's office has. But again, whatever was said was early in the case, and that is not her position today.
So she's changed how she feels about it.
As often is the case when individuals are charged, arrested, accused, sometimes it's a process.
Are these those weird influencer parents that basically tortured the kids? The 8 passengers? The YouTube stuff, the stuff that was apparent was her like taking the doorway. That's what she admitted. She took the doorway of her teenage son. She would withhold food. She would use food as a controlling and manipulating way to get her children to do things and like do like a bunch of chores and all that stuff. That's the extent that we know from the YouTube stuff.
To come to the point where...
But, behind closed doors, could have been a lot worse. There's also a lot of isolation involved as well, where the children were isolated from their friends, from people in general, electronics being taken away, where they don't have access to the outside world. So shit like that, yeah.
Where they take responsibility and accept the consequences.
A lot of people have spoken out about other victims in this case, the victims of Jodi and other different sorts. And I know this is about the children, but how much does that weigh into what you guys have discussed with Jodi?
As far as other victims, that has not been a factor.
Well, and prosecutors are saying that they're hoping that Jodi gets a lengthier, heavier sentence. They feel that she's kind of the
Oh my God, I see Adam Steed in my other screen.
ringleader in this whole situation.
That's the prosecution's position. It has been from the beginning. As I said when we entered into the plea agreement, she did not do that because Ms. Franke had agreed to testify against her. That decision was made before Ms. Franke ever agreed to testify against her to cooperate with the state.
Mr. Terry, you said that there were 2 sides to every case. What is the side of Jodi Hildebrandt that we're not seeing?
I'm not going to go into the specifics of allegations.
Tell us about Jodi's side. You see, yeah, I'm not going to go into the specifics.
That she agrees with and doesn't agree with. I will stand by the statement that I made in the sentencing hearing, and that is that the factual basis that is set forth in the plea agreement, those are the only adjudicated facts in the case. She admitted to those facts. She takes responsibility for those facts. She's been sentenced on those facts.
This is a small, family-oriented community, and her home was essentially likened to a concentration camp. How did she square that? How did she work around living in this community while there was a house of horrors?
I'm not prepared to respond to that. That's an allegation that I heard for the first time today. I mean, that's a characterization by the prosecutors, which again is no surprise. But that's from their perspective, and I'm not prepared to address that.
You don't feel that's an accurate description?
I do not.
You disagree with that?
I do.
Has Ms. Hildebrandt, has she expressed remorse to you about what happened?
Many times. Many times.
What is her remorse? What is she sorry
Her remorse is for getting caught.
about?
That she didn't make different decisions and that would have resulted in the children being more protected.
Is she delusional?
I'm not going to respond to that.
Has she had people come visit her family? I know Ruby has a larger family that has been a little bit more present at some of the hearings, but has she had some support in all of this?
I don't know that she's had visits, personal visits, but I know that she's been in
Jodi wished she bound the duct tape a little bit tighter.
contact with people who are supportive of her.
She wished she came home a little bit earlier that day before the kid got out.
No family, though?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
Is she going to sell her home? I know the restitution can play out for...
It's for sale, yes. Based on the fact that we anticipated a prison sentence, yes, it's for sale.
$5 million.
That's all I
Anyone
have.
who wants to buy a home out
Thank
there
you.
in the desert?
Thank you.
$5 million.
Thank you very much.
Here, I'll answer your questions. He's her attorney. He can't answer them. My name's Adam Paul Steed, and if you guys want to know who Jodi Hildebrandt is, I'll answer tons of questions about her. I know my dad. Hey, Dad, come here. Come here. My dad has a file at home that's probably about 2,500 pages of records from court filings and just huge amount of documentation about Jodi Hildebrandt that we will share with everybody. I want you to know the same court that has ordered us not to share these documents is covering up this racket that Jodi Hildebrandt had with the Mormon Church in the 4th District Utah County Court. She abused my children the same way, almost, even in a different type of abuse. I think it could be argued worse, and that was 15 years ago. And I fought against Jodi Hildebrandt with my family and everybody to stop this monster of a lady. And Jodi went after me. She went after me, destroyed my life in the craziest way you could ever think of possible. Like, I was a victim of sexual abuse at Boy Scouts of America, Camp Little Lemhi in Idaho. And my dad helped us stop a predator. You can read it in the national press and everything. We changed the laws of sexual abuse so victims could come forward. We got rid of the criminal and civil statute limitations. The Mormon Church knew who we were. And Elder Helam, Richard G. Helam, was he was the president of the First Quorum of the 70, the top probably executive functioning leader of the whole Mormon Church. And he sat with Jodi Hildebrandt as they destroyed my life in this court racket, like they've destroyed countless other people's lives. And they even had the gall to order my Mormon Stories thing where I brought some documentation off the internet saying,
oh yeah, it's so down. The reason why I know about him is because he was on Mormon Stories and he talked about his experience with Jodi Hildebrandt, how she essentially destroyed his life. And Jodi was supposed to be his therapist, and she divulged information about their therapy sessions to, I think, his employment at the time. And then he get fired for that. And then so that's why she had an ethics complaint against her and had her license suspended for a couple of months.
That they didn't want me to say bad things to my children or in front of the children about my ex-wife. Well, if you're accused of sexual abuse by Jodi Hildebrandt, and if your ex-wife performed a falsification of sexual abuse, that professionals looked at the documentation and said, this is sexual abuse. This is sexual abuse. We have documentation for sexual abuse of my children by Jodi Hildebrandt and my ex-wife. And you know, this stuff was redacted in the Doppel paperwork. It was so horrible that it was redacted. And the courts just recently said I couldn't talk about my family or my ex-wife or anything, but if you have children, if your children were trained to think that your dad was sexual predator and a monster.
So I'm sorry, we came in a little bit late. Why is it that you wanted to be here?
Okay, so there are tons, and it's not Jodi Hildebrandt is the tip of the iceberg. The Mormon Church was doing this operation where they were using religious beliefs and they were using ethical therapists to enforce them, and it was an area of exploitation, and it was a horrific area. It was exploitation because it created horrible divorces that should have been normal divorces. We're talking about hundreds and thousands of families going through these courts, and Jodi was like an icon. Her doctrine. Okay, so here's the problem. Everybody.
So today it sounds like was a little bit of like justice for you too.
Oh, Jodi, yeah, Ruby Frank. When I saw Ruby Frank, I saw my ex-wife sitting there saying the exact same thing. That my ex-wife would have said the exact same thing Ruby Frankie said today, and a lot of other women would have said the same thing. You have no idea how many victims are out there that their minds have been messed up so much with this. The prosecutor said that he said that the children thought it was their fault. All of the adult men think it's their fault. All of the women think it's their fault. I have had countless emails and messages.
Sorry, what was your name?
I'm Adam Paul Steed. I'm the guy that got Jodi's license from Doppel removed. Well, my dad and mom get the credit. But you know, and they said that the Doppel department said, we have evidence here for criminal charges against Jodi. This is 13 years ago. It's identical stuff. So I almost like fell over in the courtroom when I heard Jodi say that she loved those children. Mm-hmm. Jodi doesn't love children. Jodi's like Ted Bundy. In fact, one time I was in a
Do you feel that she should have a longer sentence than
Jodi, here's the problem. Somebody hits a person and runs. That's like two variables, a car and someone running. They catch them. Jodi's got like 30 variables, including a huge issue with the Mormon Church racketing. I mean, they're all ducking low and covering. In fact, I looked at an email, and I can show this to you guys. This is factual evidence, where it should have been a neutral person in the courts. Kelly Peterson, the guardian ad litem, when they were punishing me in the family custody courts, he said that my act to turn Jodi Hildebrandt in was an act of vengeance, and they took my kids away from me. Because I performed an act of vengeance. That's in this court was sitting there completely in bed with Jodi. They've done it. I talked to Doug Thayer's daughter. She saw relations. I mean, these aggressive attorneys working with Jodi, Commissioner Patton. All these people know about Jodi. The BYU Honor Code office before they kicked me out of school for being a whistleblower on child abuse, I guess. Jodi Hildebrandt went there and told them I was the most dangerous man she'd ever met in her lifetime. We have hundreds.
And this is why she got her license taken away.
Of pages of this stuff of Jodi Hildebrandt working with top church leaders to dispel me. I got kicked out of school my senior year. This lady, we've got all this documentation of how she talks, how she walks. Now, here's what I do want to say.
Oh, it was at the school that he was, okay. Not the school that he was working at.
I don't like Ruby Frankie, but I don't know her. I just think you have to be a selfish person to fall for Jodi's stuff. She's got a certain kind of carrot that gets certain kind of people. But Ruby Frankie would have never done any of this stuff if Jodi Hildebrandt hadn't been the mastermind and just completely created this. Ruby Frankie's not dangerous in the sense she's not going to go out and do this to more kids, but Jodi Hildebrandt will. When we went to Doppel, and we went to Doppel ordered her to go through all this ethical stuff. She went through the whole thing with shining colors, and she turned around and did the same stuff again. I mean, even when she was teaching us that we were safe to come to her and stuff, she was abusing children at the same time with one hand and teaching a godliness with another hand.
So what's her motivation?
Jodi Hildebrandt had a weird relationship with my ex-wife. It was a dual relationship. It was bordering sexual in nature. I mean, she went through different women that made her look powerful and important. My ex-wife's dad was a Area 70 in the Mormon Church, and Jodi Hildebrandt wanted power, but I know her instincts. When you're in a pain and suffering, when you talk about something and she finds a way to hurt you, it makes her blush. It makes her feel euphoric. I've seen her act that way and look that way in the worst of circumstances. So I always compare Jodi Hildebrandt to Ted Bundy because nobody can figure out why a serial killer would kill people. Jodi Hildebrandt, she grows off of people's pain and destruction. And when she sat there and said she loved those kids, I almost fell out of my chair. The only thing her version of loving children is find a way to make them hurt more than anything possible. It's like an energy she feeds off of.
Thank you so much, Adam.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't. It's a little traumatic for me, so if I monologue, I'm sorry. Does anybody have a question?
Covered a lot.
We got a ton of documentation. That 4th District Court's got to be ducking their heads right now because I do want to say something. There's countless children out there that have been raised to believe their fathers are predators because of Jodi Hildebrandt. And the 4th District Court and other courts involved don't want to show they made mistakes. So who's going to help those children? Like, who's going to help them? Like, this is a court of public opinion. People need to find out the truth to go help all these children and help all these people come forward. And the fact that the court tried to silence me for being on the front edge of coming forward is just an example of how the same notorious people in power back then that allowed Jodi to do all this stuff are alive and thriving today. And if you give a damn about our children, you got to do the same thing I do and fight for what's true.
Thank you so much, Adam. Thank you, Adam. That was Adam Steed. Excuse me, I'm sorry, I was getting it through my IFB, hearing myself. That was Adam Steed, who claims to have been a victim of Jodi Hildebrandt, in a sense, comparing her to Ted Bundy. So really, really emotional testimony that we're hearing outside of the courthouse now. Bob, I'll send it back to you right now.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, this is kind of amazing.
Yeah, his story was on Mormon Stories podcast, but I saw that it was taken down maybe like a month or so ago. I don't know if they brought it back up, but yeah, it was like a 4 hour long podcast, and I listened to the whole thing. Not only has he come out, but also Jodi Hildebrandt's niece has come out as well in multiple interviews talking about her experiences with her aunt when she was a teenager and her parents didn't want to deal with her and they just dropped her off at Aunt Jodi Hildebrandt's house and all the things that she would do. And they were basically echoed the same thing, being tied with duct tape, being told not to do certain things, being let outside in the cold, just stuff like that. Like severe mental and physical abuse. Jodi's a total danger to society. I want to hear those phone calls. I'm very curious about those phone calls. Okay, so I felt like there was a lot. I don't know. I want to listen to Ruby Frankie's speech again, and then like we'll go back to Jodi Hildebrandt's, because first it's just I don't remember hearing an apology to the children, to the family members, to anyone.
Judge Walt,
you don't have to bend down. Then.
Okay, thank you. I would like to make a statement without any intent to change my stipulated sentence. For the past 4 years, I've chosen to follow counsel and guidance that has led me into a dark delusion. My distorted version of reality went largely unchecked, as I would isolate from anyone who challenged me. I was led to believe that this world was an evil place, filled with cops who control, hospitals that injure, government agencies that brainwash, church leaders who lie and lust, husbands who refuse to protect, and children who need.
She said that she hired Jodi Hildebrandt as Chad's counselor in 2019. When did their YouTube channel go down again? Was it 2021? And when did they start their YouTube channel? Like back in 2015, 2016 or something?
Abused. My choice to believe and behave this paranoia culminated into criminal activity for which I stand before you today ready to take accountability. Jodi Hildebrandt was never my business partner, nor was I ever employed by her. I have never received wages from her or connections. Jodi was employed as my son's counselor in 2019, and in 2020 I paid her to be my mentor. It is important to me to demonstrate my remorse and regret without blame. I take full accountability for my choices, and it is my preference that I serve a prison sentence. Thank you to the officers in Santa Clara and the Iron City Police, Nick Hellman, Brian Palufo, Cy Pickuvit, Mike Pondoyo in Tobler, John Ward, D. Lewis, and Chief.
Honestly, I know that she was probably just ramping up and like the children was going to be her grand finale. I think the apology, I think the address should have been first and foremost her children. It should have been her children. It should have been her husband afterwards. And then do your thank you tour with everyone else.
Flowers. You were the angels who came and saved my children. I especially want to thank Detective J. Bate. She plucked me out of a situation I didn't know how to get out of. And the moment she handcuffed me was the moment I gained my freedom. You were not the controlling ones. I was. Thank you to the medical staff at Intermountain Hospital. Your skill, tenderness, and professionalism helped heal my children. Jodi and I inflicted the injuries, not the hospital. Thank you to DCFS, the Children's Justice Center, Judge Basil, and other key adults. You've gathered my children under your wing and offered them love, compassion, encouragement. You were not the ones who were doing the brainwashing. Thank you to my Bishop Tom Hawks and my state president Jim Nelson for reminding me of the Lord's love for the lost. So much pain and suffering would have been avoided had I followed and heeded your counsel. I was the one who was deceived, not you. Thank you to the Washington County Prosecutor's Office, Ryan Sham, the legal assistants and discovery clerks. Eric Clark, you exemplified to me how justice and mercy are meant to coexist. My charges are just. They offer safety to my family, accountability to the public, and they did show mercy to me. Thank you to my attorney, Lamar Winward, and his staff. I would not be where I am today without them. Thank you to Randy Kester for your limitless energy in healing my family. My dear friends, Pam and Roy, I'm so sorry for letting you down. Because of your association with me, your innocence was called into question. My mother-in-law, father...
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's Pam, the Connections president.
Kevin's family, my cousins, aunts, uncles, nieces, nephews, and neighbors. You all saw the warning signs long before I did, and you did what you could. You wanted to help, but I pushed you away. My mother and father, I have been utterly wretched to you. You have offered me unconditional love, and for that I have offered you unconditional contempt. My siblings and their spouses, because of my decision to roll around in a pigsty, I have dragged your families through the mud in public. Yet, when I desired to return as a prodigal sister, unlike the prodigal's brother in the Bible, you synced step with my parents and ran out to greet me. Your capacity to love is unprecedented. Kevin, my husband of more than 23 years, you are the love of my life. I'm so sorry to leave to you to finish what we both started together. The ending of our marriage is a tragedy. And you are wrapped around my heart in a knot I'll never be able to undo. To my babies, my 6 little chicks, you were part of me. I was the mama duck who was consistently rowing you to safety. I can see now, over the past 4 years, I was in a deep undercurrent that led us to danger. I never ventured to darkness knowingly.
Something about being a mama duck and supposed to be leaving the children to safety, but instead she led them to a deep current and into danger instead.
I was so disoriented that I believed dark was light and right was wrong. I would do anything in this world for you. My willingness to sacrifice all fear was masterfully manipulated into something very ugly. I took from her all that was soft and safe and good. I took from her a mother. How terrifying this must have been for you. I will stop crying. You're hurting your tender souls. You're so precious to me. I'm sorry. My choice to live in fear of the world has created a great vulnerability and a blind spot for me, where I have broken hearts and I've caused people to suffer and I have betrayed sacred trust. Watching my community respond to my charges with justice and mercy and grace and love is all the more evidence to me of how wrong I've been. This world is full of really good people. And finally, I'm sorry for twisting God's word and distorting his doctrines.
I don't know. I feel like given everything, distortion is a poor choice of words.
My greatest desire is to stand in his court someday spotless and confident. And Judge Walton, I know that standing before you today is a necessary step towards that end. Thank you to you and your staff for facilitating my opportunity to take accountability and to answer for my charges. I am humbled and willing to serve a prison sentence as long as it takes to continue unraveling all of the misinformation I have believed and bought, swallowed, and acted out, and for my family to heal and for the community to heal. And I understand this is going to take time. I'm committed to continuing my learning until all of my toxic layers are shed, and I am ready to re-enter as a contributing member of our beautiful society. Thank you, Judge Walton.
Thank you for your statement.
It was really hard to hear her. I caught the gist of it, but there were some parts where I truly had no idea what she was saying. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I was looking for to see if she was going to address the two children's individually, not kind of like rip all her children up together. If they were going to be addressed individually, and then if she was going to address Sherry Frankie, because it seems like Sherry Frankie, at least a year before everything went down, she was very concerned about her siblings. She was trying to get police to go by the house to check up on them. I don't know. But then again, there were some parts that I just really couldn't hear. Maybe she did, or maybe she didn't.
Statement, Ms. Frankie. Anything else, Mr. Winward?
No, Your Honor.
Anything else prior to the court imposing sentence?
I mean, honestly, for these women, Ruby Frankie, all we can go by is how their actions are going to be in the future, right? How are they going to take their prison sentence? When they come out, if they come out, how are they going to be? Are they going to change? Are they going to be different? Are they going to go back to their old ways?
No, Your Honor.
The sentence will be that Ms. Frankie.
And then I want to go to right before Jodi, when they said that she did not sound like she was sorry whatsoever, no remorse, how she was on the phone call. She said that she was the victim. I just want to make sure I heard that part right when the prosecutor was talking.
Ms. Hildebrandt has shown little to no remorse for her actions. In telephone conversations that will be provided in full to the Board of Pardons and Parole, and which she knew to be recorded, she's repeatedly claimed that she is the victim and the children are the perpetrators.
Oh, I can't wait to hear these phone calls.
She's gone so far as to say that the things said in this proceeding and covered by the media today will be full of lies. The combination of three factors make Ms. Hildebrandt a significant threat to the community. First, the severity of the abuse she caused to be inflicted on young children. Second, her attitude that everything she did was justified and that she is being wrongfully imprisoned. And third, her training as a therapist and aptitude for using online resources to convince others to follow her guidance. Utah Code Section 76.3.401
lays out 3 factors the court should consider in determining whether to impose concurrent or consecutive sentences. The first is the gravity and circumstances of the offense. The second is the number of victims. And the third is the history, character, and rehabilitative need of the defendant. As agreed to in the plea agreement and as recommended by adult probation and parole, consecutive sentences are appropriate here. This is due to the severity of the abuse to the 2 victims and the extreme need for Ms. Hildebrandt to be rehabilitated so that she no longer will present a risk to the community. The state respectfully requests that she be sentenced to 4 consecutive terms.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Mr. Terry?
Thank you, Your Honor. I will be brief.
And I'm going to get to where she speaks, and her speech is pretty concise.
And P in the course of the...
That's what I'm wondering, Mary. I was like, was she talking to her business partners, the other connections people, church members, family, other friends?
Pre-sentence investigation report.
Correct.
Why did she not make a statement?
She wanted to reserve her right to make a statement before the court today, and she has a brief statement that she wants to read, Your Honor.
Okay.
And
all right. Ms. Hildebrandt? Go ahead.
I sincerely love these children. I desire for them to heal physically and emotionally. One of the reasons I did not go to trial is that I did not want them to emotionally relive the experience which would have been detrimental to them. My hope and prayer is that they will heal and move forward to have beautiful lives. I am willing to submit to what the state feels would be an appropriate amount of time served to make retribution as an outcome.
And in answer to your question, Your Honor.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were just like, oh, how come you're not apologizing to the children, the family? It's a very short statement. I don't know. It was a very short and generic statement. Maybe she forgot that she was able to give a statement, and then she just like wrote it on the fly just now. You don't think Jodi could be rehabilitated? I disagree with that. I think anyone can. There are some severe cases where there are repeat offenders where you're like, okay, it's fucked. And, you know, Jodi, it seems like she had the backing of the church to bolster her whatever the fuck treatment she was doing. So she probably thought that she was doing the right thing. But in order, I don't know, Ruby Franke, I think, would probably have a better chance because she's only been sucked into the Jodi Hildebrandt world for what? I don't know, 4 or 5 years. Yeah, 4 years. Jodi Hildebrandt has been doing this for what, over 20, 30 years? It's going to be a lot tougher with Jodi Hildebrandt. Yeah, it's going to be a lot tougher. I like to think that people can change, and I like to think that people want to change. But we'll see. You know, we'll see how their actions are while they are serving their sentence. We'll see how their actions are when they're released. We'll see how it goes. She was in homeschooling. Was she? I don't know anything about her in homeschooling. Her language is very interesting. Her niece and other victims won't believe one word out of her mouth. Yeah. From what I've heard, it was pretty fucking atrocious. And I've only heard from about 2, maybe 3 of her victims so far. In detail, 2 for sure. There was another victim that came out, I think, a couple weeks ago as well. But I mean, I thought it was really interesting that her own daughter cut her off. I don't know if her son did, though. I know she has a daughter and son. But her daughter, when she was a teenager, was like, I'm leaving. I'm going to live with dad. I'm not living with you anymore. And apparently they're like not on speaking terms. At least when the book came out, that's what she wrote. I don't know about the son, though. For Jodi Hildebrandt, it's not just prison sentence. It's also that, I don't know. That's like a whole different segment of specialized therapy in order to unravel that, let's use her word, distortion that she's going through. I don't know, man. That's a lot of years to unravel. Oh, this is the video.
You cannot just get into the cupboard and take yogurt and crackers. You can't come in the kitchen and take whatever you want, whenever you want. Are you hungry? Yeah. Are you growing boy? Is that why you keep getting into the kitchen?
Yeah. Look at me. I will feed you a very good lunch, but you have got to promise to stay out of the kitchen. Do you understand? Lunch is in 1 hour. I think you're cute when you're sad.
I don't know. It was just shoving the camera in the 3-year-old's face. The kid is like standing there. She's like winking at the camera. And then she's like, I think it's cute when you're sad. Oh my God. And I think the kid just said no at the end. It was just, ugh. Like, oh, gross. Ugh. Whew, guys. Look at my eyes. I rolled out of bed. You guys ever wake up in the middle of the night and then you can't go back to sleep? And then it's like an hour or two later and you're like, shit, the sun's coming out. And you're just like panicking.